Hey guys, welcome to our Building in Public series through OPS Unfiltered. I'm Jared, and I have my co-founder today, Brendon Beebe. So let's catch you guys up. What's been happening in Luminous real fast? These are just like the quick bullet point updates. So we are now going out for a fundraising round. Yeah, what made us decide to do a in-between Series A fundraising round?
Yeah, things were going really well. I think we're closing a lot more, and we're closing way more consistently than we thought. And the amount of expenses that's building up on implementation, dev, product, I think it's just putting a lot of strain on all the parts within Luminous. And it would feel way easier to maintain that growth if we simply had 4 or 5 extra people.
We could have done a Series A, honestly. I think we had the traction, we had the revenue. It just felt a little bit too premature. Like if we just do an in-between round, buy us another year time, like we can really be in the driver's seat of Series A discussions. Then I'd say the other update has been made some hires. So we hired a backend developer, really good one that Brendon knew, Jordan Bush. So he was at 4Up and then Limble.
Yeah, he's incredible. I'm really excited to finally have him.
Why did you want to hire Jordan? You worked with him before?
Yeah, so Jordan was at 4Up. He was there before I was, developer number 2. He worked remotely the entire time he was there. And it was really, 4Up was built off of 3 developers for a really long time. Joel Hopkins, Jordan, and myself. It was just us for a long time, and that was enough to get by. So he has a full gamut of skills. He's very social. Like, he's not the stereotypical developer. He has a very business mind, and I feel like that's really important.
And we need somebody who's jazzed about building at this stage, and he is.
Yeah.
And we can already tell. Other update has been sales and marketing has gone really well. We broke $1 million in build. SaaS.
$1 million in SaaS revenue.
$1 million in which
SaaS ARR.
So we've talked about this before, and like there's $1 million in contracted ARR, then there's $1 million in actual build, and then there's $1 million in just SaaS. And I think what we've been talking, we've been coming to the realization that like, look, the real $83K or the real $1 million run rate is when SaaS bills $83K in a month. And we're actually there now.
Well, for so long, it was like, it's so easy to play with the numbers.
To do contracted or like...
You can say, well, technically I contracted that for double and they're discounted the first year. Or technically they promised they would come in, so we're going to count that.
Yep.
And it's like so many ways to game the numbers. The only way not to game it is the money has to come into our account, and then on that month, we count it as like, that's where we're at.
Exactly.
And so for a long time, it was, hey, we're here, but it's contracted. And then we readjusted, and we were way less than what we actually were.
Honestly, hitting that's been like a massive turning point for me. I think it was a big deal. I don't know, when 94% of SaaS companies die before they reach $1 million in ARR. So honestly, it's a massive milestone for us. We did it, and it wasn't a fake one. It wasn't the fake contracted with ancillary like revenue streams coming. No, it's like we hit a real $1 million in ARR this year. We effectively went from like $250K to $1 million within a year.
Yeah.
So good job, us. Now that's introduced our next bottleneck, which has been a bottleneck from hell. And that's been implementation CS. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Last thing I'd say is we went to SaaStr. We go to SaaStr every single year. This year is like taking a whole freaking bus load of people. Last year was just 3 people. This year was like 8, which felt way different this year. But wait, yeah, why do we go to SaaStr, Brendon?
I think more than anything, it gives a time to like, I think an offsite can have a similar effect, but it's 2 or 3 days where you're disconnected. You're not doing your day to day, and you can step away and think like, what can we change for this next year? I think SaaStr makes it 10 times better because you're seeing and interfacing with people from hundreds of different SaaS companies, people who are crushing it, people who know what they're doing. And so it just lets you rethink about how you're running your department and what you're doing differently.
You get to compare yourself to excellent companies.
Yeah.
SaaStr, the stories they tell, the speakers they get are the best of the best at different stages. So they get people who like, went from 0 to 10 million and then, or 10 to 100 or 100 million to $1 billion. So like they have a good mix of like excellence at different phases. So you can always learn something from them. They have product-led growth companies that went from 10 to 100. They have sales-led growth companies that went from 10 to 100 or whatever. So yeah, you can always...
Yeah, it gets you out of the Utah ecosystem. Utah ecosystem is great, but it's so tiny.
Such a bubble.
Yeah. There's so few amazing, fantastic SaaS companies in Utah. And so every Utah meetup, you get to hear from the founders of Divi. And it's like, you can only hear from them so many times.
Yeah. Or Pattern.
Yeah.
It's not really SaaS. So my favorite talk at SaaStr was the Apollo founder. So he talks about his journey of basically like they were 4 years into the company. They had done a Series A, and all of a sudden they were faced with their extinction at post Series A. After they had achieved some level of product market fit, I believe they had gotten to like 2 million ARR. So the founder just detailed exactly how they went from almost dead to now one of the biggest ZoomInfo competitors. They were faced with an identity crisis where like they had found some product market fit, but it wasn't scalable. Apollo, they pivoted to appeal to product-led growth model, and everybody in their space was doing sales-led growth, like ZoomInfo. They're going up market, selling big, massive enterprise contracts. So what ZoomInfo did was, first off, they had 50 employees, cut it down to, I believe it's like 10 total employees. Then they just dove in and reconstructed their entire company to service SMB. So like what really impressed me was, instead of just saying like, well, I guess we need to go up market like ZoomInfo, they were like, no, there's a market here. We're just not monetizing them correctly. And they dissected every part of their business, from support to pricing mechanisms, like what scale to contract, to sales, making it true self-serve. And basically they went from, almost dying to like now I believe they're at like Series D, competing head to head with ZoomInfo.
That's amazing.
It was incredible. So like so many cool lessons there.
I think my favorite at SaaStr was Jason Lemkin's ending Q&A is always really, really, really good. He talks a lot about the state of the market and just general recommendations. And every year you kind of pick up something different. And there's a big focus on AI this year and how to plug that into a traditional SaaS. Right on this moment, I can't remember what he talked about, but I took some really awesome notes, I remember.
Why? Here's a question. So there was a Klarna post recently. The Klarna post was basically this: by the end of this year, we will cancel Workday, we will cancel Salesforce, like all of our ERPs. That tech will be non-existent. We don't need it. We will just only use custom AI plugins to the mission critical tools. What do you think of that? Are we building into a dead market because of AI? Are all system of records and ERPs, are they a dying breed now?
I guess my confusion with that post is like, where does the truth live? You have to have some sort of system of record. Otherwise, do you just end up with spreadsheets connected to AI?
Yeah.
Or are you using AI to build your ERP? And then, that's going to run into other issues.
Jason Lemkin, he talked about this. He was like, it's like, yeah, that post was probably 80% bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's kind of cool. Like, it gives a lot of publicity. It is interesting though. Like, I would say, honestly, that would be my biggest fear of building in this ecosystem is like, maybe does AI get so good one day that it's trivial to like spin up a custom ERP? Like,
right.
Like maybe you have the foundations, and maybe the company that, like, they have the foundational code for all of your modules, but maybe AI gets so good it's all about the last mile development, the last mile customizations to customize it to the client's needs. So that's always my concern is like, man, is Odoo gonna like figure this out and like crush us all? Or I don't know.
That's a really good point.
Or NetSuite.
Right.
Imagine if you could plug into an AI model like all the attributes of the customer. And like NetSuite, they already have the templates of their model. They have everything. Like, and imagine if AI could just customize it. But that's where like I'm not an AI engineer. I don't know what's feasible.
Right. I think one of the thing, AI was like the topic over and over and over again. And if anything, especially if you use AI for development, it's not perfect. Like it's a great help and it gets most of the way there. And if you're starting from scratch, it's really awesome. But the moment it's like you want really refined adjustments, or when there's a very specific workflow or process, that's where it just really fails right now. The context window is so limited. But is there a world where the context window gets so large that it's actually able to do those types of things? I think that's what people think, but is that 10 months away or 10 years away, or I don't know.
Yeah. So after SaaStr, what are you now implementing to make sure that Luminous doesn't fall behind in the AI race?
Yeah, I think post SaaStr, one of the big things we took from it wasn't that we have to pivot our entire product to AI, but that there's probably very small niche use cases within the software that can be super optimized using AI, whether that's helping come up with the product name or whether it's how do you categorize this SKU. I think there's really small experiences that when you plug in, it's not the AI that's the feature. And that's where, the past year was these stupid co-pilots, and we went into this realm of like everybody should use command lines to tell the software what you want it to do. But nobody wants a text interface to like tell their ERP how to work. You want to use the interface and have AI working there without them knowing it's there. And so I think that's the route we're taking. And so one of the things we're implementing is we'll have a hackathon every month, or maybe 1 to 2 days hackathon every month, where the engineers, developers will be able to just play around with it and roll out some quick prototypes, see what works, what doesn't work. And it's mostly just to get our feet wet, get us comfortable with working with the OpenAI AI APIs and miscellaneous things.
So what are some of the main features that we've rolled out this past quarter? What's been new in Luminous product?
Yeah, this has been a really awesome month. So the past month has really been focused on the wholesale experience and billing and payments. And so we're really targeting this customer who's on NetSuite, using NetSuite CRM for their sales and invoicing. And so we rolled out automated billing, being able to save a card on file and have the auto bill according to the payment terms, setting up payment reminders when an invoice isn't paid. We rolled out an integration into New Order. So anybody using New Order for their wholesale flow, we can digest those sales orders, split them out across multiple shipment dates, then bill them on an invoice and bill that, however frequently you want. Other piece was some refinement on our relationships. So sales orders can be invoiced multiple times. We talked about this last time, but our focus is really on the wholesale customer. And so they're dealing with really large sales orders that are fulfilled over time. Mm-hmm. And those sales orders are invoiced kind of as the fulfillments occur.
Yeah, this is so common. Whenever an e-com company, not even e-com, it's extremely common with e-commerce companies. So you get a massive sales order from like Scheels or something, or even just a specialty retailer. You purchase from China, it comes in batches, and then you send it as it comes in. So now, to my knowledge, I think one of the only systems that you can effectively like send multiple invoices per one sales order.
No, I'm sure lots of people do. There's a specific competitor.
Thing that we're talking about with Sin7?
Maybe it's Sin7 that can't do that. There's these really small not niche, but like specific use cases that immediately prevent somebody from using customers. And I think Sin7 was the one that couldn't have multiple invoices per sales order.
Yeah. Okay. So we just have a competitor, Sin7, who you can't do that. You can't have a sales order and then send multiple invoices per sales order. So does this change at all who our perfect customer is?
I think it refines it more. It expands who our perfect customer is. So now our perfect customer is doing billing in Luminous. Our perfect customer might have a new order and they're doing larger orders. Our perfect customer can now be somebody who's invoicing as they fulfill the order, where a lot of our current customers, it's one invoice per sales order, like very basic. This just expands our market a little bigger.
So what do the next 12 months look like for the product? Has anything changed there?
The next year is really going to be focused on wholesale for the retail experience. So we have a whole flow coming out for retail EDI that will hit sometime next year. We're going to continue to expand our wholesale offering and go a little bit deeper on our B2B side. We see our B2B offering, while it won't ever be as customizable as a new order for your wholesale platform, we really think that we can deliver a B2B experience that's on par with what you want to get from new order. And so that will be a big focus, probably the end of next year.
Basically, if you're a omni-channel e-commerce company that does a lot of wholesale and you want that billing to be totally automated, like we're a great fit for you. Mm-hmm. If like Shopify Plus, running your B2B sales through Shopify Plus isn't quite automated, like the way it connects to the 3PL and the way it bills customers and it invoices to QuickBooks, let us know. Like we can honestly be a great fit.
So on the sales side, what have you been seeing as far as market sentiment goes towards NetSuite? What trends are you seeing?
I'm seeing a big trend away from massive ERPs. I would say this trend started in like the mid 2010s when VC money was just being thrown at e-commerce companies because they thought it was a vehicle for, billion-dollar valuations. So what that led to was small e-com companies now have budget for big ERPs and big COOs. And that led to a lot of decisions. Frankly, I think bad decisions implementing NetSuite and having like a really expensive COO who knows NetSuite. And I think the dust is settling now. It took like 5 to 10 years for the dust to settle on those decisions. But now we're seeing the dust has settled. These companies are not nearly as big as they thought they were going to be. And to get to profitability, we see a lot of companies willing to drop their big clunky ERP and get something that's more right-sized. So that's what I'm seeing.
That's amazing. What about finance? How do you get off a bigger ERP? What are you seeing?
First off, it depends on like if you come to a system like Luminous, we don't have a general ledger, so you have to migrate off of NetSuite onto another general ledger like QuickBooks. So what Luminous does is we have a partner team that does this. They can migrate off of NetSuite onto QuickBooks. So Luminous just like we sell you an all-in-one migration. So we have our team that will migrate you from NetSuite to QuickBooks, and then we'll do the operations migration from NetSuite onto Luminous. But that's what we're seeing. But it's definitely one of the challenges. Like your CFO has to be okay going to QuickBooks. A lot of times going back to QuickBooks. It's a challenge though.
That's awesome.
Why did Luminous specifically choose not to build a general ledger? A lot of our competitors are currently building a general ledger. We see a bunch of new companies who are just purely like a general ledger for e-commerce. Like Day Zero is one, Finaloop. There's another couple ones that come up, and then you have other ERPs who are on top of it, all of the operational stuff they have to build. They're building a general ledger. We specifically chose not to. Why was that?
It was a very purposeful decision. I think we looked at a lot of the people who built, ERPs in the 2010s, like Deere Systems. It was a general ledger first. Or even if you look at NetSuite, it was Larry Ellison put $1 billion in and they built a general ledger, and then it kind of progressed from there. And you see a lot of people doing it right now. But I think when we looked at the market and who we're servicing e-commerce companies. We found the majority of these e-commerce companies had outsourced bookkeeping. They didn't have somebody in-house running all of these. An outsourced bookkeeper, the last thing they want to do is jump onto a brand new platform. Oftentimes, these younger general ledgers are missing basic functionality that you'd expect to have in even QuickBooks or Xero or some of these common ones. And so we decided, hey, let the bookkeeper, let the accountant use their financial platform. We don't have to switch them off. We don't have to even sell them on switching. And we can act as a sub-ledger. We can take care of costs. We can take care of COGS. We can take care of purchasing. We can do all the accessory actions without having to own the general ledger and the financial statement. And it makes the sell a lot easier. Now we don't have to go sell a CFO or sell somebody on switching everything over. It's much easier to jump in, and we wanted to be operations focused. I think your frustrations with a lot of the platforms is they were finance focused and operations second. And so for us, it's operations first. Let's figure out finances later.
Yeah, I also think the strategy, there's something really important that we determined. This is how I put it. There's like a natural evolution in e-commerce companies, which is you use a fractional bookkeeper until one day you hire a veteran CFO. And that sort of explains the gap between QuickBooks and NetSuite. Like you just use a fractional $700 a month bookkeeper until one day you don't. Then you have a $10,000 a month CFO. And like that's the gap between QuickBooks and NetSuite right there explained. So I think our thought on building a general ledger, until that changes, I don't think there's a reason to build a general ledger, because even if we build a freaking smashing general ledger, it's just amazing. It has everything and it's purpose built for e-commerce. Are you going to convert every single major accounting firm? Maybe somebody will do it one day, but not this day. That's a tall task to do, because that's the thing with general ledgers. You have to convert an entire populace. So either you have to, if you're going up market, you have to convert an entire populace of e-commerce CFOs to get off of NetSuite, which that would be a decent bet right now, still extremely difficult. But the problem is building a general ledger, you have to start down market. And then oh my God, you have to convert thousands and thousands of accountants off of QuickBooks, and that it just feels impossible right now. That's why we didn't build a general ledger, boys and girls.
But we might someday.
Yeah, maybe. Honestly, I feel like our bet is we see so many, honestly, like cool general ledger products out there. My bet is that one of them is going to fail in the next 3 years. When I say fail, I mean like be a good product, but probably run out of money. Their go-to-market wasn't quite good enough, and maybe we can gobble one up and embed it into Luminous. All right, so I said that we were going to talk about our current bottleneck. This is us Brendon and I are opening up, being vulnerable here. The past week has been hell. Yeah, it sucked. I was going to San Francisco. I was implementing clients, doing sales, quarterly planning. I got sick, and I was moving into a new place on Friday. It just freaking sucked. That's more personal stuff. Like from a company perspective, with the big increase in sales, we've felt the next bottleneck, and it really shined a light on some mistakes that we've made as leaders on like the CS implementation front. How would you categorize these mistakes so other leaders don't make them?
I don't know if they're as much as mistakes or just normal growing pains. Yeah, I think I feel like the important part in a startup is you're evaluating where things are at and you're making changes, and the structure to your company is kind of being created as you're growing as fast as possible. It's like, what's the phrase? It's like building a plane as you're flying.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of catching it and then identifying where it is.
I would say the lessons that we've learned through multiple departments is like, like clear tiers of ownership. You can't just hire somebody and then have ambiguous ownership. That's what we noticed. So like we hired two people who are basically parallel to each other. Nobody was above one or the other, or at least it wasn't immediately clear.
Yeah.
And I think what that led to, it also wasn't clear between us who owned CS. And I think what that breeded was this ambiguous culture of ownership there, where it's like, okay, well, who is responsible for churn, and who is responsible for knowing where this customer is at? And it was just super ambiguous. And like I think sales increasing just sent a spotlight on that. And we were like, oh shoot, wow, we need to clearly identify who owns what here. So it led us we split out the CS department into 3 different departments. So one is front of line support, one is CSMs, and the other is implementation. And each one of those departments has clearly defined objectives and KPIs. And each one of those departments is now going to have a head who is responsible for that. Honestly, it feels like structurally, it feels so much better. Part of the frontline support, we decided to use a software called Service Bell. And honestly, the reason why was because it just feels on brand for us. So Intercom, but it integrates into Intercom. We'll have to figure that out. But Luminous has this sort of like where we really differentiate ourselves from our competitors like NetSuite and Sin7. Support is really hard to get, and it's like totally non-human. It's overseas support. So we see this as an opportunity to really differentiate ourselves on support. Service Bell is essentially like, imagine FaceTiming somebody, and that US support person is competent and they can like take control of your screen or like do an ad hoc training. So we really thought that was on brand for us. And it's one of those things where it doesn't feel scalable, but I want to figure out how to make that scalable because I think it'll help us. We've clearly proven that our support, like human interaction, is one of the biggest differentiators. It's why people will choose us. So it's our first attempt to sort of try to make it more technology driven and see if we can scale it.
There's a talk at SaaStr actually where they mentioned, when you're a small company, sub 10 million ARR, your product's not going to be as good breadth-wise. It's going to have more bugs than, the bigger softwares. And the only way you can differentiate is that human touch. And so this is our way of like solidifying, hey, we are completely different. You can actually FaceTime our support agents and they'll get on with you.
It's such a selling point.
As the product's going to evolve, it's going to get better and we'll get there. And as it's growing, this will make up a lot of the difference.
So the ERP problem, I believe, is multifaceted. We've had this conversation offline. But sure, you have the software problem, which is like, how can you create a superior ERP experience and like divide up the modules and, custom fit that to an e-commerce company. But the second part that people don't talk about is you can't, I don't think you'll ever just have a self-service ERP that works. I don't think so.
Right.
I think the second part is support and training. Like, who's going to help you implement it? And I think that's a big part. That the reason why we're dumping money into this service bell thing and into support is because we're really making a bet that it's not just technology. This is also the support that you get, and you have to have superior support, and you have to have constant human contact to get your ERP working correctly.
Well, here's a question. If you look at NetSuite, Acumatica, any of the SAP, the support and implementation is completely outsourced, right? You go to a service company, you pay the service company $1 million, they help implement the platform. And then on the other side of things, you have this N7s where there is no support. You just kind of figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
Why don't the big platform ERPs offer like a compelling services, like professional services implementation team?
Imagine if we did it that way and our bottleneck was purely how many people can we sell? Like, just imagine that.
Right.
That's why. Or maybe that's not why. I don't know. But that's what it feels like. Like, imagine that. Imagine, oh my gosh, we would just be selling this like crazy. But I think that's where the breakdown is, because your incentives are not aligned with the customer that you're selling. It's sort of just like, oh yeah, they'll figure out implementation. But and then you're selling 3-year contracts, so it's like kind of, it doesn't matter if they deliver a horrible experience. It doesn't, not really. It's like, and then NetSuite doesn't really care. I mean, they do. I'm sure they do to a certain extent, but
right.
Not really. If you're selling a 3-year deal, they're stuck in. They know that every ERP implementation is going to suck, but they're stuck on it. So I don't know. There's not much incentive to take on that implementation. Not really, financially.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how successful you are. As long as you figure out how to implement some part of it, it's probably going to be a pain in the butt to switch off anyways.
And Larry Ellison, he knows it. Like, he's the second richest dude in America. Like, that dude's printing money. What does he do? Like, he just owns like, NetSuite can do everything. It's the backend tech of most Fortune 500 companies.
Right.
So, well, do you think there's a deeper discussion there with tech? Like, maybe that's because, I mean, honestly, software in the cloud is like a relatively new thing.
It changes how you build the product. NetSuite was built as a platform that could do anything, but so generic that it requires a crazy amount of customization to actually get it to do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could build a super generic platform, and it just puts a lot more heavy lifting on the implementation side. Or do we narrow our focus on who we can service, make that as seamless as possible? And if we're owning the implementation piece, can we also build the tooling to make that as easy?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so too. But I think that's what we have to stay curious on as a company. Like, we can't just throw, actually, we can actually just throw people at it. I think that's the benefit of fundraising in this market is you can build out the technology as best you can and then throw people at it, which might not be scalable, but it's something that eventually we'll have to catch up. Like, we'll have to be able to scale support in a meaningful way. And that's like, the onboarding experience has to sort of be embedded into the software itself one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is something to say, like channel partners or somebody who's reselling us, who's also managing support. If that's ever going to happen, we need the tooling in place that they can see all the logs, see what's going.
Yeah.
Why isn't that automation working? Why is that API call failing? They have to be able to debug all that, which is a whole other feature set because we just do that, right?
Yeah.
So if we go the route of channel partners, which that seems to be what everybody does, is that the right path?
I personally, I don't think so. I feel like the opportunity in the ERP space is to specifically not rebuild NetSuite. Like, so if the question is basically, do we just rebuild NetSuite for e-commerce? Like, I mean, we could, but I feel like other people have sort of tried that already. Sin 7 basically rebuilt NetSuite in the cloud, and they built a self-service platform. So they went all in on like the complete inverse. Like, no, you can build a self-service ERP. I think the distinction is like, we're building a product, but we're embedding support. We're not saying that ERPs can be self-onboarded. We're saying that we will also own the result of whether or not you get implemented.
And then you look at Locate, who a lot of channel partners really like, but I think it's because they built a lot of tooling to support channel partners.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, Locate sold and they never grew.
25 million or something.
Yeah. Like they had $1 million in ARR total.
It's a really interesting discussion, but like, I do think the ERP space is going to get disrupted. It's a $13 billion opportunity. If you think about like product distribution and like retail e-commerce in the United States, it's a over $10 billion opportunity. And I think like, even if we take off 10% of that, even if we build $1 billion company, and it's just like omni-channel merchants, like the biggest omni-channel merchants who also do wholesale and e-commerce. Everybody throws out stupid numbers like, this is a $15 billion opportunity. Is it? What are your numbers there, boy? I don't know what our TAM is. We've pitched it to investors, and I just know the TAM is massive.
The TAM is unimportant when you're starting anyways. Get to 10 million and then figure out how to make it larger.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I think at the end of the day, we have so many ideas on how to actually grow the company past 10 million, whether that's through payment processing, through purchasing, through sourcing. Like, there's 100 different ideas on new product offerings that can naturally expand that TAM.
Exactly. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next month for our Building in Public series.
Excellent.
Out.